Waste makes haste, for time is fleeting. A rolling stone is worth two in the bush.
Go fuck a refrigerator, peckerneck!
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of the two hosts of this roasting podcast.
Oh, and I'm Rich and I'm the other host of this roasting podcast. Think of me as SpongeBob to Dave's Patrick. He's pink and squishy and my pants are square.
Christ. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, their worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course we often drift off and just have chats about life and movies in general.
And we do have to mention, we do drop spoilers. So if we mention a film you don't want us to spoil, go off, clean your glasses, you know they're filthy, come back and we'll get back to it. Because on today's episode we are joined by Chris Scull.
Chris is a brilliant podcaster. You might know him from the 90s football podcast Quickly Kevin that he presents with Josh Widdecombe, or if you're a West Ham fan you might know him from doing the half-time stuff at West Ham, but he's also the co-founder of Another Slice, a thing that me and Dave are signed up to with this podcast to give you extra bits of content.
That's very true, yeah, because we're very excited to sit down with Chris and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Chris Scull's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy!
Do you remember the first sequel you got excited about?
Oh, yeah, Terminator 2, isn't it? Well, do you know, I wasn't... Home Alone 2 or Terminator 2, for sure. But I wasn't excited about... Like, no one was eagerly... I don't feel like anyone was eagerly anticipating the sequel to Terminator. Because I actually watched Terminator 2 before I watched Terminator 1.
Yeah, me too.
And Terminator 2 is obviously just brilliant. But Home Alone 2, I vividly remember. Like, I remember being really excited about. And my mum had just been to New York the Christmas it was out. So that was like, oh, wow, you've actually been to where it's going to be. And when it came out, like Home Alone 2 as well, it's such a good film. It's so good. It's so fair. I watch it every Christmas. That and Muppets Christmas Carol.
Brilliant.
You're right. How old were you there?
What's that? 93? I was probably 10 years old. So I think that's the perfect age to consume Home Alone 2.
Alone. At that point, did you dream about being home alone, left in New York?
No, it's absolutely terrifying, isn't it? When you watch it back, it's actually really... Home Alone and Home Alone 2 are quite frightening films. The jeopardy in it, when you really think about it, is absolutely terrifying. And it's weird when you watch it back in that kind of pre-internet age and you just go, wow, you've really probably got no way of communicating. Although, they ring the home phone? Oh, they try and ring the home phone, they cut the line.
Yeah,
Why don't they
cut
ring
the line.
Yeah. I suddenly thought, have we just discovered a massive plot flaw? No.
Well, in the first one, they try to ring the house, the police do, and he hides under the bed.
Oh, the police go round, don't they? Yeah. They don't try very hard, though, do they? They just, like, knock on the door once and then go away. Like, you know, it's like...
Don't sod this.
Yeah. So we just knock on the door.
He's
and
not there.
leave.
We've done our job.
Would you say Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1?
I think it's one of those cases of a sequel being better than the original.
Yes, Chris.
Well, I think the ingredients you look... I was thinking about this, like the ingredients you look for in a sequel is that you want the more of the same but better. You want all the same. I think you want a lot of the same beats, but you want real character development, more jeopardy, bigger bangs, more explosions.
And
I've never
Donald
got
Trump.
into Donald Trump. We're actually, my wife was talking about like going to New York. Well, I've been trying to get her to go to New York for Christmas, and I was saying like, should we have a look at the Plaza? Do you want to stay in the Plaza? Like, what's the Plaza? So it's like the number one Christmas hotel in the world. And then like you look at it and you're like, it doesn't actually look that festive in real life.
Oh, don't ruin it. I always wanted to stay there and have the fridge with the cookies inside.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That would have been magical, and just order loads of ice cream.
Yeah, my little boy has been on about going to New York. He's like, can we stay in that hotel? I was like, no, it's £1,000 a night.
It's £1,000 a night. Yeah. They have got one room that's like £300 a night. That is like a cupboard.
I love that you've checked.
Yeah, that was the one I had earmarked.
Brilliant.
What a romantic trip that will be.
Yeah, but Donald Trump once walked these halls and bumped into Kevin McAllister. You don't understand.
What do you think made it a better sequel? Is it Tim Curry?
Yeah, let's go through it. I think straight away the fact the family are in Paris and not Miami, it feels bigger. That feels like it's got a bigger budget. The fact there's more shit, like the parents have got no way of getting back. The fact he's gone to New York, so he's not even got the kind of home comforts. It's great that with Home Alone 2 that you don't really notice the plot device of, oh, your auntie and uncle live in New York, but they're renovating, so they're not in. So there's an empty house there, and when they get there, there's holes through the floor. There's like straight away there's a lot of kind of there's jeopardy within that situation. And New York is fundamentally a scarier place. The great character, some of the introductions to the new character, the bird woman plays the version of the scary older neighbor.
Yeah.
The bird woman lives a wonderful kind of bohemian life, and actually, you're quite scared of her. That's a lovely little narrative arc in there. And that actually she lives above this kind of orchestra. So she hears these wonderful symphonies every night, and Kevin kind of sees a bit of her world. And then the Wet Bandits escaping is just a wonderful bit of this. There's so much of it that it feels so much bigger budget, and so many aspects of it that come together, like the toy store and the guy who runs the toy store,
Mr. Duncan,
and was it the little doves? She gives him the little doves, and then of course the whole thing about the Home Alone film is it builds to this climax where Kevin has to take on the Wet Bandits in the house, and I think. The way they kind of reference the first film, like the paint buckets coming down and, oh, no, you got me there. And then it's like the huge bollard that actually takes them out. And the holes in the floor, like there's so many beats in that whole thing that are just so good. And then with it all ending with the fireworks in Central Park, it's perfectly cinematic, so much more jeopardy, so much more interesting character development. I think that's what makes it a better sequel.
How can you not love it?
How can you not love it? And it's festive. And it's one of those the great thing about I probably love Christmas films, and I love Christmas stuff more than anything else. Like I think Christmas Carol is probably my favorite story ever, Charles Dickens, and the Muppets Christmas Carol is the best interpretation of that. And the Home Alone series being based at Christmas, these are things I return to every year. Like I'll always. I went through about 5 years of watching A Wonderful Life, and then I got really bored of it. But there's certain things, like Christmas, I think is just a wonderful moment to watch the same films again and again.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the fact that Home Alone 2 is a Christmas movie means I think it's always going to have a place in the world's heart.
Absolutely.
When you were younger, did you look around the house and think, that could be a trap? Because my dad was a builder, so there was always drills around. I was like, oh, I wonder what I could do with that.
Dave, you absolute psychopath. Who would do that?
Well, just in case I was home alone.
How do you think you would have fared? I feel like I don't think
not very well, Chris.
Even now, if a burglar broke in, like I don't know what I'd do.
Have you got a golf club next to the bed or something?
No, nothing. No, I'm like not even pepper spray. Nothing. I've got nothing. Even the paint cans are in the basement, so I wouldn't be able to get to them in time to chuck them at her.
I think if a burglar broke in these days, I'd probably sleep through it, knowing me.
Say what you want, not the TV.
Yeah, not the TV. I have actually been burgled when I was asleep upstairs and not woken up.
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
see, you should have laid traps.
Should have. Yeah. They used my housemate's duvet cover to put all the stuff in like a massive Santa sack.
Was it at Christmas?
No, it wasn't. It was we'd only moved in we'd had been in the house 2 days. We hadn't even properly unpacked. It must have been really easy to nick stuff because it was all packed up for him.
Where was it?
Yeah,
was
this? I was in Cheltenham.
Oh, that is absolutely terrifime.
Yeah,
must have been posh burgers.
You're no Kevin McAllister. He would have dealt with that.
Definitely not. No, definitely not.
Have you ever heard? Well, speaking of sequels, have you ever heard that there was a tweet that went around? I think it was last Christmas, talking about what a sequel still involving Macaulay Culkin could look like at Home Alone. Like he could be kind of left alone while the family go away for Christmas, and then the Wet Bandits have him be an adult, and then the Wet Bandits kind of come back, or have his kids be left at Home Alone Although, I don't know if I just...
If you're an adult, though, it's just kind of attempted murder, though, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, those people would have brain damage by now.
Yeah,
The amount of bricks to the head they got.
Do you know what? When you watch Home Alone back, it's like the level of violence is shocking.
Yeah,
and actually,
especially for kids. Yeah,
how they get away with it?
Because it's cartoon-like, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
like...
it's cartoon-like, isn't it? Like, I think my favourite bit in that of the two films is when the taller wet bandit, whose name I can't remember, Marv, that's it. Cool. Marv, what a great name. When he's getting electrocuted and you see his hair gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And then at the peak of his scream, he briefly turns into a skeleton. And you see him, I think that is probably the greatest moment in cinematic history.
Yeah, I think he's brilliant in that film. Daniel Stein, I think his name is. My favourite bit is when the bricks are getting hit his head and he's going, Howie, Howie.
Yeah. Marv actually steals the show in both of those films.
Absolutely, he does.
Yeah. And I remember I wanted to see more of, like, Marv was the lead in a film I saw a trailer for, and I remember going to my local video shop going, can I watch this film? And it was like, obviously this is a tiny budget film that he's been in the lead for. Like, the video shop didn't even have it. But he should have gone on to really great things.
Yeah.
He's by far the best thing about that film, I think. Better than Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both didn't have a career afterwards, to be honest.
Yeah. Isn't it weird when you see Macaulay Culkin now, you see him, you're like, that's not right. It's like one of those kind of those weird kind of things you look at that your eye can't really understand, like those stairs that just go around that look like they're always going up but in a circle.
Yeah.
And like that's how I feel when I look at Macaulay Culkin. Like, I just can't really compute that you're that old.
How old is he now?
I think he's the same age as me, like early 40s.
Okay, so you were prime Home Alone age, Rich.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Nice.
And if you Google Macaulay Culkin West Ham, you'll see that sometimes he walks around with a West Ham shirt on, like a 90s one.
Oh, right, okay.
Mate, you should get him on your podcast because that is... Isn't it all fitting together there?
It's all coming together.
I don't know what you're talking about, but... What is your best ever sequel? Where do we land on this one?
I think I've gone with RoboCop 2. I think of all the films I've watched the most, I've gone for basically all the picks of things I've watched the most. I've definitely watched RoboCop more than any other film. And RoboCop, the first one, hyper violent. Actually, the story of this is like, I can't remember. RoboCop felt like a thing that was marketed to kids. So I was like 10 years old at the time. I definitely had a RoboCop action figure before I'd seen RoboCop. I was really into the idea of RoboCop. And I remember being at a service station with my mum's sister, my aunt, and my godmother. And there was like a RoboCop. And I was like, oh, I haven't seen RoboCop. And she went, oh, I'll get it for you. It was on VHS, like in a service station.
That's going to be
obviously
prime
it's got
price.
a whopping grade 18 certificate on it. And she bought it for me, brought it home. I took it in, and I was like, I remember going to my mum. Like, I knew this was like, I shouldn't be allowed this. And I remember saying to my mum, look, I've got RoboCop, and she like didn't really pay any attention. And then I went off to my room and watched it, and holy cow! Like I said, I was like 10 years old. People doing cocaine, the blood, like the guts, the shot. It's so hyper violent.
Yeah.
It took into like watching it for years and years and growing up that you eventually begin to understand what it is you're watching and the references, and that is intentionally hyper violent. But the violence of RoboCop, I think, is superseded by the violence of RoboCop 2. And I remember seeing I probably saw RoboCop 2 when I was like 13, something like that, and it just kind of blew me away. It did everything that the first film did, but like, as we just discussed with like Home Alone 2, it was even more extreme. Like, I still think about that vivisection scene. There's a corrupt cop, Duffy, later in the scene, who is kind of betrayed by the bad guys, and he is cut open, like vivisected, and you actually see the scalpel going in. And this is done in front of one of the main baddies is a child.
Yeah.
Like, so much of this is like absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah.
And it just really, so much of it is shocking and memorable. And I think it did, and also the way that kind of RoboCop gets destroyed, gets his hand shot off, and the storyline with Murphy's wife petitioning OCP is so much more kind of heartrending and violent and interesting. I think it tells a better story. RoboCop 2, man.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it at like 8 o'clock in the morning, which is a weird time to watch RoboCop 2.
Have you ever seen it? Had you ever seen it before?
I had seen it before, but probably similar age to you, about 11 or 12 kind of age. I remember watching RoboCop with like a babysitter. Like my mum had gone out and left us with a babysitter, and they'd put RoboCop on, and we're like 8 or 9 years old, and gone, I don't think I'm old enough for this.
What?
But loving it all the same. And then RoboCop 2
Yeah.
I'd definitely seen, but not for a long time.
Yeah. Did it stand up?
Yeah, it's sort of. But I find it kind of weird that they're still using the stop motion animation in the same year that Terminator 2 is released with like a liquid metal like robot. Like,
but that's Phil Tippett like animation.
Yeah, I know, I get it. Like, I understand, but it just feels like it's 10 years older than Terminator 2 in my that's what it feels like in my head. But yeah, it's still great.
Specifically, Ed 209.
Yeah,
like
and the
most comedic baddie I think of it that's ever existed.
The baddie in RoboCop 2 is like it's like nightmare fuel. Like it's like
That wasn't a good idea on their behalf, though. Is it? Like as a plot, we're going to put a psychopath into a machine that can kill everyone. I don't understand how they thought that was a good idea. Like, you can't control it. It's...
because Kane is the main, he's the main bad guy, right? Like, what? This is the thing about OCP and Dick Jones. They are making some of the most insane decisions. Like, they're putting the main, but like, also now I think about the scene early on where the OCP, they're like, I don't know why. The thing about OCP is like, they're always trying to get something better than RoboCop when RoboCop is doing like a great job. So you come like Ed 209 in the first film absolutely kills everyone, and in the second one, they're getting what seemed like a string of kind of legally dead police officers. Don't they arrive that the problem with RoboCop was that he wasn't quite dead, and they need someone whose brain is completely dead in order to be able to make a better RoboCop. I mean, not that RoboCop's that bad. I think he's doing a great job. So there's a sequence where they get legally dead police officers, put them in these prototypes, and one after another, these new RoboCops just start killing themselves again and again. And you're like, oh my God. Like the philosophical implications of that. And that's the great thing about RoboCop that I think is really overlooked a lot of the time, is that he's making these deep social philosophical points throughout but both the writing and the directors in both films are making quite astounding, interesting points in both films, and that's kind of buried in this scene where you just like these people don't want to live as machines. It's really interesting.
It is. There's some ethics in there, you think, quite about. I don't think you thought about that when you were 13, though.
No, I didn't. No.
I did
when I was
cool.
third. The baddie, the things I remember thinking about when I was 13 were like the fact that Kane, the main baddie, had a nose ring. And then I remember, like, if ever I saw someone with a nose ring, I'd be like, that person is dangerous. Like a man with a nose ring.
Jay from Five.
Even now. Yeah, Jay from Five was a really terrifying guy.
Yeah.
The most dangerous one in Five.
Well, he was the bad boy. Has it aged well, do you think?
Well, I watched it again, and the bad gang centers around like there seem to be drug lords, and the big designer drug is nuke.
So 80s.
And that is really 80s. I'd like, it doesn't make much sense. The drug, the way they administer the drug is that it's in these like little needles with like little sachets, and they do it straight into the neck. But then there's no appreciable kind of effect to the drug. Like, it's not clear why anyone's actually doing it. They just kind of go, ugh, like it's a paracetamol or something like that. And like, I think that is still a mystery.
Yeah, like later on, they've got different like coloured water for the drug, and it's like this one will do something else. And this one will be like this is an upper, and this one's a downer, and all these different like versions of it. And I'm like, well, yeah, but why? What do they do?
Yeah,
they say it's the most addictive substance known to man, but what's the benefit? What's the upside?
Also, what is the storyline, Robert? Like, so the the corporation are trying to defund the city, and the mayor's getting angry. By the way, the mayor goes big in this film. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
But are they putting Nuke on the street, or is Nuke separate to the corporation's plan?
Separate, isn't it? I don't know.
It's separate, but there seems to be some. I think that what they're saying is there is some sort of corruption there, isn't it? Because, like in the first film,
Yes.
OCP, and the baddies are kind of in league together, and that actually there's the implication that the baddies and OCP are kind of aligned to some extent in the second film, but that OCP are, for a capitalist interest, are trying to bankrupt the city in order that they have more power and kind of own the police. Take
over the city, essentially, don't they? They want to
and build more buildings, like nicer. I mean,
know.
it's not a bad idea. Detroit looks horrible.
Well, it's like this idea that people have got now of like corporately run cities, basically, that don't have any. The laws are set by corporations rather than government.
And that's the interesting thing is that, well, I mean, so much of this is prescient because a lot of those points they're making are about American, capitalism and like corporations taking over, like Google, or like Detroit going bust is something that actually happens. Is kind of predicted by this film, and also the role of corporations in kind of influencing society. Now we've got Google and Apple who make more money than some nations. A lot of the kind of the themes of this film have actually been proven to be interestingly kind of true. I mean, to how much they knew that and were just making a horrific ultra-violent film, I don't know.
Have you ever watched RoboCop 3? Have you gone down that road?
I think I did. I think I've watched it once when I was a kid, and it's quite kid friendly, the third one, isn't it?
It's not Peter Weller. They put him in a jetpack. I haven't watched the film, I don't think. I watched the trailer and I was like, that's enough. Unlike you, I'm not a massive RoboCop fan. I didn't ever think that I was like, oh, he looks so cool. His movements, I was like, he's so slow. What so what is
that's an interesting point, that he is slow.
Yeah.
He's like, just run away, just run around the corner. It's kind of like the the Daleks being like, well, they're not that agile.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're a baddie in RoboCop, they're like, literally just run around the corner, like run up some stairs, and he's going to be an hour from you. Like, it's not
like he runs anywhere, is it? He's big, not particularly mobile, which is kind of what you would think if you were making a RoboCop. You would imagine him to be quite agile. And it's interesting that the main competitor for RoboCop is Ed 209, who's even less mobile. Like, fame is like,
it literally just like topples over.
Yeah. They seem incapable of making any kind of robot that is relatively agile.
Yeah, put some wheels in him.
Yeah, what's wrong with the wheel? Yeah.
I did think what was really cool when I was young is how the gun comes out of his leg. I always thought
that was always really cool.
But the thing I always thought about that is like, well, is his leg hollow then? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not a...
That's a good point.
Surely, if there's just a hole where a gun, shouldn't he have like a lot of, I don't know, weight in there, or
Yeah,
surely that's not great if your leg's hollow.
Yeah, That's a good point. All those cars he drives around in must have really reinforced suspension, because he must weigh about 50 stone.
and the other thing I always thought with RoboCop is like, why leave the human fleshy mouth exposed? Do you know what I mean? Like, the whole idea of RoboCop is that you're gonna shoot at him, or like, what happens if you just shoot his chin and shoot?
Yeah, I don't understand it, because in this bit they cut him open. Just go for the face straight away.
Yeah,
cut that up a bit.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, that always happens in like RoboCop. Like, why are they trying to angle grind his chest out? Like, go for the hard bit. There's
go for the head,
soft, fleshy bit,
the brain
exposed. Yeah.
Just take his helmet off.
That scene where the baddies kind of trying to deconstruct RoboCop is absolutely horrific. Like, you see from his point of view, they're like, he's pinned down and they're like, got one of those pneumatic drills on his chest, like going through him. Yeah. And then when they dump him outside the precinct, and he's just going, oh man.
That's pretty cool. Well done, Rich.
Yeah, it's really well done. Yeah, so I was just going to say, it's like nightmare fuel. Like, you're pinned down, and that's your point of view.
And the oil getting like shot out everywhere. Oi.
Yeah.
They wouldn't try that now, would they? As in real life.
Well, they made a 2016 RoboCop, didn't they?
I meant in real life.
Oh,
Rich,
real life.
Oh,
right, okay. A real life robot? No, I don't think they'd make a real life robot.
But let's talk about the remake, reboot, whatever it is. Have you watched that, Chris?
I watched it once, and
enough.
everyone kind of raved about it, didn't they? But I kind of thought it was fine.
It's rubbish. It's really dull.
Okay, good.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I didn't really enjoy it.
And they made him all black and like they probably made him so he could run. But it lacked the little bit of campness that was in the original RoboCop. Those two, the bit of silliness.
Yeah, the silliness. That's the thing.
Fun,
that
really.
It's really kind of, although it is a hyper-violent film, it is actually quite silly. And even that bit where that guy keeps turning up going, I'd buy that for $1. Like what the fuck is that bit?
Yeah, exactly.
Even like the other
He's got
bit,
one line, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I still don't know what that. And also like the board game that's like the nuclear war, and the kids all sat on this.
Yeah, the adverts are crazy.
Oh, the adverts are great.
Yeah, you all note each other. Like, have fun for the family.
And the baseball team that like ransacks the video shop.
Oh yeah,
with the coach.
Oh yeah, the little league team. Yeah, the kids. Wild.
I mean, the kids are evil in this film.
It is, and also the bit where there's in the first film where Bob is slagging off Dick Jones in the toilet, and the other guy stood next to like realizes that Dick Jones is in the toilet, and then just does his trousers up while pissing himself. Like that bit really sticks in my mind. Like running out, like I'm just going to piss myself because I just need to get out of here. It's so good. And also the bit in RoboCop where one of the baddies gets thrown in the waste, like the nuclear waste, and comes out and his skin's all melted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the bad guy, isn't it?
The bad guy. Yeah, he's like, and he's kind of going, kill me.
I used to get. I still get muddled up between 1 and 2. It seems until I watch 2. I always thought the kid was in the first one for some reason.
No, kid's the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got Red from That 70 Show as the bad guy in the first one. And then I used to get the robots modelled up. Because they do look kind of similar, the big bad robots from the first and second one.
Yeah, but they're basically the same, aren't they? Like, one's got a little face video. That's kind of the only difference.
Yeah.
Is the white-haired guy from the second one the same as in the first
No,
guy?
I think it's a different
That
guy.
is also just another guy that looks like...
I think it's just Peter Weller and Nancy Allen from the first one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think anyone else.
But he's so good. Peter Weller is so good as RoboCop. And I remember thinking, like, he's only in these first 2 films, but I actually had a look at his Wikipedia. He's quite a decorated actor. Whereas in my mind, he's just pure RoboCop.
He was in the one of the Star Treks recently.
Oh, really? There you go.
Yeah.
But you don't think the baddies across the RoboCop 1 and 2, because I'm not including 3 in the canon, like Kane and Hobb in the second, and then that whole gang in the first, I think Clarence, they're all absolutely terrifying. I think proper bad, like violent baddie. Like they scare me more than any baddies in any film I've ever seen. Easy.
Yeah, definitely.
They're really scary. And the stuff they do is terrifying.
Well, this one's written by Frank Miller, isn't it? So he did like 300 and Sin City.
He's a maniac.
Yeah, he loves a bit of kind of crazy stuff. The first one wasn't, though, I don't think. I think it was only RoboCop 2.
You guys both got kids.
Yeah.
What age would you show this? Because it's
38.
yeah. I don't think my parents ever realised. Like, I don't think they ever sat with me and watched RoboCop. I don't know how this flew under the radar. There must be loads of kids. Like,
it's a toys, isn't it?
A whole generation our age who watched this.
Yeah.
Because it's not an 18 certificate. It is something beyond that. It's one of the most violent films I think ever made. Let's say, like, in terms of kind of popular American films that most people will have seen, it doesn't get much more violent than this. And also kind of, the critiques on corporate power and all that stuff it's a really mad, violent film that kids should never have been exposed to. So, like, to answer your question, no, there's no way my daughter was ever watching this before. Like, even 16, 17, I think it's been probably. Yeah. And do you know what? I'm going to go with the classification. 18.
Would you show like Terminator 2 before this one to your kids?
Oh, I would, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. Terminator 2 is a bit softer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although there's a few bits with the T-1000 with a big pointy dagger finger, and when he goes through the face of the guy, and it has its moments.
But that's a bit more cartoony. Like the bit where RoboCop gets shot up in the first one when he's actually a police officer. I just rewatched it on YouTube. It's fucking violent.
It is,
he gets his
yeah.
hand blown off, and he's like,
Yeah.
Do you know
blood's
what
going everywhere.
One thing I found having kids is that my radar for what is a scary film is completely off. So, like the other day, I sat down. My daughter wanted to watch Aladdin. I don't even know how she knew about Aladdin. I went down to watch it, and Jafar is absolutely terrifying. That big tiger head coming out of the desert in the start, it eats the guy. This is like 5 minutes in. And she's like, I don't want to watch this anymore. And then like the red Jafar when he's hypnotizing the emperor guy. Like my daughter was in bits after like 10 minutes. And I was like, do you know what? I've got this completely wrong. You are way too young for this. I swear that's a you. I didn't even, maybe it was like,
What?
Yeah, it's not particular. It's not a PG, but it's terrifying. And Aladdin's getting chased with swords and stuff, trying to like chop his legs off in the big opening number, like one of the second opening number. It's terrifying. You're like, what? So actually, I should absolutely not be in charge of deciding what ages people can watch films. This is what I've realised.
Did you get a telling off from the missus?
She did. Yeah, I did get a telling off. Like, because my daughter's 3. She was absolutely petrified. It's like, what are you doing? Let her watch this. I just thought anything on the Disney section of Disney Plus is a kind of safe space.
Yeah, you'd think so.
I wouldn't have imagined, and especially the cartoon, that golden kind of generation of cartoons, I would never have imagined that. But the whole thing is terrifying.
What has been the most disappointing sequel? So it doesn't have to be a bad sequel, but one when you went in hyped and it turned out not to be as good as you hoped it to be.
Not as good as I'd hoped it to be.
Any point in your life?
It's hard to look past this one I'm about to talk about because the disappointment is so entrenched.
Yeah.
It consumes my whole field of view when it comes to sequels.
We talked about the Matrix movies quite a lot in this one.
Yeah, the Matrix movie. But
Terminator 3.
Yeah, Terminator 3. I mean, Home Alone 3.
Yeah.
Well,
no. That's not even like I don't think I even watched the entirety of Home Alone 3. I think you get 10 minutes in and go, who the fuck is this kid? And you stop watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how bad, I don't want to be horrible to children, but when they can't act, it truly ruins a film, right?
Yeah.
Is that bad? Yeah.
Yeah. No. My wife is a theatre producer, so we're always considered like 90% of our chats when watching anything is, well, they're not a very good actor. Like it's all. But Home Alone 3 is an especially bad example of that. Where you're like, how have they cast this guy? Like, surely not. Speaking of which, like one thing my wife showed me the other day was the kid in E.T. Have you seen his audition tape? Is on
amazing.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, it's incredible. It's so good that so he's acting a scene where they're taking the authorities are taking E.T. away from him, and the kid is like, he's acting. It's an amazing piece of, like, it's obviously just an audition tape, but Steven Spielberg ends like, this performance is so good. Spielberg's just like, you got the job, kid. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, he just cries on call. Like, Spielberg's telling him what's happening.
Yeah.
And then you can just see this kid's face changing. Like, you can see why he got this
It
job.
sort of worries me when a kid can do that. I'm like, are you going to be a psychopath? Like, that much control over your emotion, that good a liar, essentially. Like,
I remember one thing because obviously my wife works in the dramatic arts. I remember this Russell Brand interview with Kelly Brook years ago, and Kelly Brook was talking about Billy Zane, who she was going out with at the time, and she was saying Billy Zane is just like, he's such a good actor, he's so good at his profession. And Russell Brand said, "What do you mean he's good? Like, he's good at pretending stuff is happening when it's not." That's what you're saying. So, I always say, like, when my wife says, "Oh, that's so," like, Mark Rylance is a great actor, I'm like, "What do you mean he's good at pretending stuff is happening when it's not?" That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, that's it.
He is good at that, though, Mark Rylance.
Oh, to be fair, I think he's incredible. Like Wolf Hall.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the sequel I'm looking forward to. Bring Up the Bodies. We've been waiting for that for so long. Wolf Hall is incredible, and so actually, in terms of the sequels, I'm eagerly anticipating. Bring Up the Bodies is. I don't know if you've seen Wolf. Have you seen?
I've seen Wolf Hall. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, Dave, cancel your plans for the rest of the day. It's
okay.
It's incredible. And there was an interesting thing I read about it was that, which is something I've always wondered, which is that obviously it's set around the time of Henry VIII. Henry VIII is Thomas Cromwell. He's kind of the story of his kind of chief advisor, which is like 1500s. I think how's my maths?
So, yeah,
something
something
like that. About that. But so I've always wondered, like the director made the decision that it would be there would be no artificial lighting. It would be shot completely natural light. So if it's nighttime, it's candlelit, and if it's daytime, it's the actual light. So you get a real sense of what it would have been like in the 15th century, how these things were lit, how Henry VIII kind of spent his evenings, how Thomas Cromwell, like, you know, it's so atmospheric for that reason. And it's got some amazing actors in it. Obviously, our boy Rylance being the top dog.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
I've written it down on the list, so I will watch it at some point. But that list is very big now. What is your worst ever sequel?
This is my worst ever sequel by such a long margin. Like actually going back and kind of rewatching a bits of this and kind of researching it brought back all the anger I felt at the time. And my worst ever sequel is Jurassic Park 2: The Lost World, which actually was a box office hit. And it was a box office hit because the first film is absolutely incredible. I think it's a generation-defining film. I think the fact we still have a franchise that every now and again spins out new films is testament to the fact this first film is absolutely incredible. I remember being in primary school, and there would be conversations around how many times you've been to the cinema to see Jurassic Park. Like competitions, like I've been 3 or 4 times. There'd been nothing like Jurassic Park. It was kind of like, looking back with an adult's eye, it's kind of like what Spielberg was doing with Jaws, where there's this big kind of, there's a beast out there, and the fact that it's hidden from view for a lot of the film, but when it makes its entrance, it is like, oh my god. And the special effects applied, I mean, it's easy to forget that the special effects in Jurassic Park, like, we hadn't really seen anything like that. I certainly hadn't. When you watch Jurassic Park and the dinosaurs, you're like, this is absolutely mind-blowing. And the terror, the storyline, the characters, the kind of expanse of Jurassic Park, it felt like the device they use of kind of going around the park. So you feel like you are someone who's been, you know, you're going to Jurassic Park yourself. You're going on this ride, and you're not witnessing these characters. It feels like you're there yourself. You're kind of along for the ride. So the anticipation that came when there's going to be a sequel to Jurassic Park, and it's got The Lost World. The anticipation, I think that's why it broke it did really well in terms of box office. It's absolutely not a failure from a box office point of view. The excitement around it is testament to how good that first film is. But then you sit down and you watch Jurassic Park 2, and you're just, what the fuck is this? Like straight away. Like the things that annoyed me about it in like chronological order. Why are they going, like, Michael Crichton actually wrote the book. I think in terms of like the way the story came together, there was a lot of pressure on Michael Crichton to write the sequel because they knew they wanted to make a film. So what I don't understand is, why not go back to the original island? Why are you going to this brand new island that is so obviously an invention? Because you see on the first film, like, the idea of this second island is a place where they grow the dinosaurs before they bring them to Jurassic Park. But you see in the first film the eggs hatching. They're growing the dinosaurs on Island Nebula, the first one. Why do they need to take them to the second island? It's like, I just don't buy this. And it just feels like, because you want to go back to Jurassic Park. It's really annoying. So straight away you're going, oh, well, this is a completely new island. The other thing that really annoyed me about the opening moments of the film is kind of like, you get Dr. Hammond. I don't really understand this. Dr. Hammond wants someone to go back to this island where the dinosaurs are grown and kind of inspect the work there and just kind of observe. Why are you picking Jeff Goldblum like Ian Malcolm? Of all the characters from the first film, why have you picked Ian Malcolm? It doesn't make any sense. And in the book as well, the first book, Ian Malcolm is basically killed off. He spends in the book, he spends the first book dying, and then at the end you're told he's dead. But the film's slightly different, that Ian Malcolm kind of survives. But then in the book, Michael Crichton actually does this in the second book. Like, he goes, oh, actually, Ian Malcolm did survive that. Oh, they'd written him off, but he didn't actually die. But Ian Malcolm is kind of like, I'd say he's the most annoying character in the first Jurassic Park. And I'm not sure. Jeff Goldblum is not a leading man. I love Jeff Goldblum. I've watched him at Glastonbury on the jazz stage plenty of times. But he's not a leading man. He can't carry a film on his own. And so why? And also, it doesn't make sense. He's like a chaos mathematician. Why are you sending him there? And then once he goes there, there's a bunch of exposition once he gets there, which is that, oh, he's actually his girlfriend now. Like in the first one, we kind of knew nothing about dinosaurs that much, and he was kind of a bit of a flirt, trying to shag everyone. And then by the second film, he's like, oh, well, actually now he's going out like a dinosaur expert. And she's already on the island he's going to. And by the way, his daughter's also there because she's stowed away and no one realised. Like, what the fuck is this storyline? Why have you got the most boring guy, like for me, the least interesting character from the first book, who has no good reason to go back to a dinosaur island? And then there's a bunch of exposition that basically his whole family's there now all of a sudden. Like, so what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Are you with me so far?
I keep
going.
Yeah,
it's glorious.
I'm totally with you. I mean, I don't agree with everything, but I'm with you.
So then the film starts, like Pete Postlethwaite is actually quite good in it, but then the kind of film starts, and obviously there's this whole nefarious thing where they're there to kind of investigate, but it turns out they're not there to investigate. They're there to kind of kidnap the dinosaurs and bring them back.
Yeah,
which is fucking insane. Like, after everything we learned from the first book, like the other thing is that isn't it like InGen, the company behind Jurassic Park, is on the verge of going bust. How the fuck they haven't gone bust after the failure of a theme park that killed a bunch of people?
Yeah.
Basically had to be completely written off. Like, I can't think of a worse corporate disaster than what happens in Jurassic Park. The fact that InGen are still surviving, and how there hasn't been a huge inquest into this business. The fact that they're barely surviving it, and the kind of the Hail Mary pass for InGen to survive is go back and grab some more dinosaurs and bring back. We'll turn it into a theme park. That idea is more fucking mad than the first idea in Jurassic Park.
We'll have a theme park in San Diego because that sounds safe.
Like, I mean, how many mad ideas have we already touched on? So they send them there, and again, the thing in the first film, you've got that hunter character, the clever girl, who's kind of like the one you're meant to be putting your trust in. We're like, well, we'll be okay as long as he's there. But you've already you've blown that, because it's like, well, these game hunters are actually no good when it comes to dinosaur. But the idea that in the second film, there's like, oh, actually, we've got Pete Postlethwaite now, and these guys actually do know what they're doing. The idea that they could bring a T-Rex back, like, successfully is absolutely insane. Like, it's just an idea. So anyway, they're there trying to do that. And then basically you've got a lot of the same beat. You've got a lot of the same beats. There's a lot, the dinosaurs are after them. Some of them are getting eaten. But you've got just mad bits that don't really make sense. Like his daughter being into gymnastics. The scene where the velociraptor is kind of about to eat Ian Malcolm, and his daughter, in the first practical application of gymnastics in the history of humanity, spins around a pole and basically kicks a velociraptor, and it runs away and they all escape.
It's a good job she was like doing parallel bars and not like rhythmic gymnastics, wasn't it? To dance around with the ribbon.
Oh, that could be it could have done that with a flare in the first one, maybe. But like,
could do.
It's kicking the dinosaur. The next big problem I get. So anyway, we're meant to believe they eventually get a dinosaur on the boat, and they get the T-Rex back on the boat to San Diego. And then you see the boat crash into the dock in San Diego, and you're like, "Why is the boat crashed?" Because the T-Rex has basically eaten everyone on the ship. How did that T-Rex eat everybody on the boat? It's massive. It can't leave the docked area it's in. It's huge. So what happened there? The people on the boat were just walking in, checking on the T-Rex, and it was eating them one by one. Like,
I can tell you there was a deleted scene that there was also a raptor. Apparently.
Oh, right. Well,
but you don't know that watching the film, because many years I was like, why is there just a bitten arm in that little cabin that no one's touched? How does the T-Rex get in that little cabin and destroy the guy that was driving the boat? Apparently there was a raptor that you don't know. So, but yes, that's also why it's stupid.
But yeah. Well, okay, that makes sense, but it's a deleted scene, so it's not within the canon of the film.
It's not mentioned,
so it doesn't make any sense.
Agreed.
And then the kind of the scene that really bugs me is like when the T-Rex is. I mean, it's called like it's on one hand. I mean, it's so shit in a way, because the whole idea of the T-Rex is like they're on this tropical island, and there's something dangerous about it being like the danger of this dinosaur on these islands. It feels quite alien, like the environment is quite alien. yeah, you get an alien walking through San Diego, but you're just like, this feels just fucking cheap and shit. Like, why have you gone down the T-Rex has escaped, is walking around a neighborhood. And then there's that scene where it's like the kids like, there's a dinosaur outside my window, and the parents are just like, don't be silly. Oh my god, there is a dinosaur out the window. Like, that scene really fucks. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it, but it's so against, it feels, the spirit of Jurassic Park to have a stupid shit cheesy 1950s sitcom scene where, you know, the dad's like, there is a dinosaur. You know, it's just like, it's almost slapstick.
Yeah.
And again, it's another one of those, like, you don't need light relief here. I don't know why Spielberg's done it, but it just speaks to the fact the film is so clunky and shit and just doesn't know what it is, and like it's just throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and just seeing what sticks.
Mm. And this is the whole reason that Spielberg doesn't do sequels anymore, right?
So I was just reading. It's interesting because he even said, I was reading the Wikipedia for it earlier, and he even says it's shit because he says he goes. What's it? He said he goes into every sequel too confident. I've made a gazillion dollars, which justifies the sequel.
Yeah.
And he comes in like it's going to be a slam dunk, and it's always inferior to what I've done before. And he says, "I'm talking about Lost World." Isn't it interesting that? I mean, so it just really fucked me off, and yeah, like I hate it. I hate it. And actually, I love Jurassic Park, but even the rest of the films, I don't know, I haven't really. I've flicked them on, and they're not that good.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do. I appreciate, because the first film is so seminal, but Lost World is especially shit for a bunch of stupid own goals that aren't necessary, like Ian Malcolm being the lead, like Jeff Goldblum being the lead, and a plot that doesn't make any sense at about 10 different junctions, and the fact that they're not on the same island. And it's just, I hate it when people make a sequel and they're like, there's only about 10% of the cast of the original. Mm-hmm. And it's not in the same kind of place.
Yeah.
It's so, like, the fact it was a box office smash, I think, speaks to the fact that they could have done almost anything and it would have been.
Well, it was a smash because we had kids like us who were literally probably going in dressed to toe in Jurassic Park stuff. Like, I had Jurassic Park everything. And then you go and see it, probably like dragging your parents, going, "We have to see this movie." There's dinosaurs again, and then it's a crushing disappointment, letdown, all of the above. The only good bit for me is the bit on they're getting attacked in their coach thing and the glass cracks. That's the only good bit. And like you said,
when they fall down and it kind of goes off the cliff. That's
good. That's a lot of Spielberg tropes in that bit. But the bit when the dinosaur gets on land and they just drop Pete Puffaway, you're like, where's Pete gone? Why is he not hunting the thing he wanted the most? Where's this gone? Yeah, it feels kind of like two different films in a place. It doesn't
it really
mesh together very nicely. And you're like, all the cast don't have any chemistry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. But then you look at the cast and you think, oh, Jeff Goldblum, yeah, great. Julianne Moore, brilliant. Pete Postlethwaite. This is getting, these are good actors. Vince Vaughn. Oh.
It was the start of his career, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they've also got Richard Schiff from The West Wing, who's like supposed to be some sort of like mercenary big game hunter as well. And you're like, no, he's Toby in The West Wing.
I don't think Julianne Moore's good in this. Like, there's something about Julianne Moore in this film that I'm just like, I don't buy her relationship with Ian Malcolm. I don't believe them as a couple.
No,
and also I think she looks too similar to the girl in the first film,
Laura Dern.
Yeah, she looks too much like Laura Dern. Do you not think it's actually
one's blonde, one's ginger?
Yeah, they look quite similar, and that annoys me because it's like, are you trying to pull a fast one here and just like recast? You're trying to do like a George McFly style recasting.
Yeah, it does feel like everyone else said no, but Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah,
and then.
But I don't know if that's what happened because the book is basically the book, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
is it? I've never read the book.
Yeah,
so
the book's basically the film. The book's it's quite close, I think. I've not read the book either, but I've kind of I had the book on my shelf for a long time and never read it. I think, I mean, I like Jeff Goldblum. I think Ian Malcolm's my favourite character from Jurassic Park.
But why?
Way.
But not as a
Well,
lead.
because he sees everything differently to everyone else. He's the one that kind of, whilst everyone else is running around going, "Oh, isn't this amazing?" He's the one going, "This is going to go bad. This is going to be a shit show."
He's being negative. He's just being like about everything.
He's the one that knows
like he's
it's
just being
going
a
to go
flirt.
wrong.
And the fact I hate the way he's dressed in in the first film. I mean, look, I want to start by saying I do like him as a character. I think he does play an important role in it, and he does. But he's a supporting cast member in that first one. He's probably not in the top 3 most important characters. But the way he's dressed in the leather pants and all that is quite cool. But I think his character he's an outsider. He should be single. Ian Malcolm should be single. He should be a shagger. Because that's the character of the first film. And actually, I don't think he should be especially brave. I think in the first film he's brave but stupid, and I think that is the kind of the character where he's like waving the flare, Yeah,
you're right. Totally.
He needs to be brave in a stupid way. So in the second film, the fact he's got a girl, Ian Malcolm shouldn't have a girlfriend. He shouldn't have a cleverly brave. He should be stupidly brave. But that's why he needs to be the foil for someone else. I'm getting too deep into this.
You're right.
The reason I think he's annoying in the first film was like that chaos theory stuff and the water, the flirtation and also don't forget he spends at least half that first book just laid up injured on walkie-talkies, with his chest out, looking at a million bucks. But he has got one of the best lines in the first film, which is that is a great big stinking pile of shit.
And he's the life will find a way, which Dave says almost every week.
Life finds a way.
That's my answer, literally, to everything.
Does Jurassic Park 3 make the Lost World seem better? Because I think if I watch the two of them, I'm like, Lost World isn't that bad.
I think it's got the same thing as kind of RoboCop, where I think I've seen Jurassic Park 3 once. But I think the second one was so bad that again it just it defeats your belief in the kind of franchise. It's amazing how a one film can really kill a franchise. Yeah, for people. Like even Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters reboot. You're like, oh wow, you've fucked this. And I think that's probably what happens in Jurassic Park 3? I can't even remember it.
A kid gets stuck on on this island, I think, isn't it? The same island, So a kid gets abandoned on this island for 8 weeks and manages to survive, and then his incredibly annoying parents turn up, played by Tia Leone and William H. Macy, to go and save him.
And it's got Sam Neill as Dr. Grant.
Yeah, they managed to rope Sam Neill in to go and help them to.
Oh yeah, that's
get
right.
That's right. His kid, and it's just Tia Leone running around going, Ben.
Yeah, and the dinosaurs get bigger.
And it's crap.
Sam Neill should have been. He should have been the lead in the second. He should have been the lead.
I think Sam Neill. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Sam Neill would have been better as the lead in this one because he's more. It was more Sam Neill-y kind of scenes, wasn't it? It was more Ian Malcolm, not Ian Malcolm.
It's Ian Malcolm doing an impression of. It's Jeff Goldblum trying to be Sam Neill.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, you're right.
I wonder why because I think it was Michael Crichton who basically made this decision to bring Ian Malcolm back. And I wonder why.
I don't know.
Because there's not much it's almost a separate character. It's almost a new character. It doesn't make much sense. I'm not sure. I mean, even cast a new character.
He probably enjoyed writing him the best.
Yeah,
I would say maybe he enjoyed that character when he was writing.
He has the best lines, doesn't he? So if you're a writer, then you're like, oh, I've written, I wrote the best lines for him, kind of thing.
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean he's the right character to do this job. I think you're probably right. It would have been. We'd be talking about a different movie if it had been Dr. Grant coming back rather than Ian Malcolm.
Yeah.
Because you could sort of see Dr. Grant having a relationship and having a kid, and after the first one,
because that was kind of the arc of the first one.
Yeah,
he didn't want kids.
Yeah, and he kind of begrudgingly likes kids by the end of it. He's met some kids he actually gets on with.
Oh, that should have been the plot of the second, didn't it? He's had kids now.
Yeah,
it lays it up, doesn't it?
It softened him up a bit.
We've just and this is the thing about Lost World. In 10 minutes, we've come up with a better plot. How many years did they have?
4 years. I think they was after, wasn't it?
Yeah. 97. The first one was 93. I think.
Yeah, I think I can tell the story. So some of my wife's friends are they are theatre I don't know what you call them, like the theatre creatives, and they actually worked on the live Jurassic Park show. It's not the exhibition thing you can go to. There was actually a show with people playing the dinosaurs.
Oh, right.
And they actually wrote the story, and they had to get it signed off by Spielberg himself. He still kind of controls the franchise, so they had to go. They had to go to LA and have a meeting with him and say, "This is what we want to do." And he was like, "Yeah, love it." But that made me think, like, this conversation is he obviously very protective of that franchise, and he still has me. You know,
Wow.
If he cares that much, why the fuck did Lost World happen? You know, he's one of the greatest storytellers. How did he fuck this up so bad? I don't understand.
I can understand why Lost World happened because, you know, like you said, he'd made this movie and he thought it was a shoo-in, and maybe that's why he's protective now. What I can't understand is how Jurassic World Dominion happened, if that's the case, because that is fucking awful. That should never have happened.
Yeah, that is a bad, and especially with the original cast coming back. And again, Ian Malcolm's in there, not as a main character again.
Good.
And knowing nothing about dinosaurs. Have you not watched it?
I haven't actually,
Oh,
but I did know the cast coming.
Sorry.
Is it really bad?
It's awful. It's really
Well, I've
bad.
watched. That's not the one. I watched the one where. I mean, this is such a stupid plot device. They put something on the Velociraptors that basically controlled them with Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Yeah,
That's
I've
Jurassic
watched that.
World.
Yeah.
And it's like when they control the Velociraptor, you're like, oh my god, this is like so
You are
jump in the
gonna
shot.
hate the last one.
Yeah, the Jurassic World Dominion, just don't watch it. I think
Really don't. It'll ruin it.
Yeah, the best advice is if you think The Lost World is bad, it's a masterpiece compared to
Really?
This leads on to the next question actually really nicely, which is, you said earlier that Jurassic Park 3 put you off watching the rest of the series pretty much.
Yeah.
Is there a franchise that you've given up early on but then you came back to, or you give it up on the first film but the second film you're like, oh, that's much better than what it should be?
I'm trying to think.
It's a tough one. This
Do you
is
know
the
what?
toughie.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the answer to that is that the Avengers ones.
Okay.
Right.
Like, I try and do this thing of making sure I have my finger on the pulse of popular culture, and although I hadn't seen any of the Avengers, I'm not really into comic book films. But that Avengers Endgame film that everybody was losing their mind over, I was like, I'm going to sit down and force myself to watch this. And although I could tell there were references in it that completely went over my head, and that this was obviously part of a larger story that I knew nothing of, I actually watched Avengers Endgame and really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, I could,
Wow.
yeah. And actually, I kind of dismissed that whole franchise, and I did enjoy it. But I then calculated I'd have to spend 30 hours of my life understanding the backstory. So I haven't gone back and watched the rest. But Avengers was cinematically, I kind of got why people are into comic book films, and it made a lot of sense. And I've kind of looked at a bit of the story. It does sound absolutely amazing, but not quite in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Do you know what, I got criticised last week, so I was actually having a chat with someone, and I mentioned that I gave up on the Lord of the Rings trilogy after the first film.
Ooh.
I was actually in the gym talking to someone, and it kind of like rippled through the gym. Like people started talking about, like, you haven't seen it. Like, what the fuck? What, like we can't talk anymore. Like it was literally people really offended. Like really, like, and also like kind of what I like. Big alpha males were like really kind of pissed off. That I would have thought. I thought like Lord of the Rings was like for nerds, but I watched the first. I watched the first one. And I was just like fucking so bored. I went to the cinema for it, and I just checked out of it.
Wow.
But I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back and watch the second.
You're talking to two people that think the second one is the best
Yeah.
one.
Really?
There is a battle in the second
So
one,
good.
which is the best battle in cinematic history.
Really? Okay.
I mean, there is a lot of walking to get to that battle, so you stick.
There
with
is
it.
a strong argument that Lord of the Rings is basically just a long walk. Like, you know,
Yes.
it's just 3 movies of
Is
a
the
very
first
long
one the
walk.
worst? Because I watched it. It was like I felt like I was.
I
watching
would say
it
it
real
is,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it does a really good job of building the characters and setting the scene and
Right.
the world.
The
I
first
think,
one's very much the
Fellowship.
world building stuff. And then
Okay.
the story
Okay.
kind of kicks in, I think, in the second and third ones.
All right.
If you don't buy into the characters in the first one, I think the second one might not be your bag. And the third one, again, big battles. But if you're not into it at that point, then yes.
Yeah.
And be prepared because the third one takes about an hour to end.
I'm gonna go
with
back.
Endgame, have you not watched Infinity War? like the one that sets up Endgame.
No.
You should just watch that one maybe because
Really,
that
'cause
really
that will make
sets.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to go and watch everything before it, but if you watch Infinity War and then Endgame, they kind of Endgame's sort of like Infinity War Part 2, basically. They're sort of two halves of the same movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Infinity War is actually better than Endgame in my head.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's got
the budgets on those films are just astronomical, and then the returns they're making, I think they're probably the most expensive pieces of art possibly made by humanity. Like they're visually they're absolutely stunning.
Yeah. But then talk about the money made. Like Lost World was the budget for Lost World was like $75 million, and it made $680 million worldwide.
Oh.
So it's that it made its money definitely. But yeah, like these
crazy, isn't it?
Like these Avengers Endgame made over $1 billion, didn't it, Dave?
Endgame, yeah, it's the second most highest grossing movie ever.
What's the most?
Avatar keeps overtaking at the moment.
The sequel for Avatar's coming out soon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it need a sequel?
No.
Do you know, is Avatar
that's the question.
Avatar overrated? Because I watched it and I was like, I don't think this is that good.
It's very pretty Fern Gully.
Yeah.
It was big when it first came out because 3D, no one had seen anything like it, and you kind of get swept along with that. And it is really good in 3D, but then if you watch it at home on your normal TV, you're like, well, it's colourful, but it's like Dancing with Wolves kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like Rich said, it's Fern Gully. It's kind of a mixture of stories you've kind of seen before.
Yeah.
And I struggle with the characters of Avatar. You don't really give a shit about anyone. That's my biggest complaint about it. It's going to have like 5 sequels, so it's James Cameron's putting his rest of his life into it, so it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
Blimey, well, they're all waste of time.
But we have to wait and see because,
James Cameron's such I watched it. I got quite into Titanic. I mean, it's a real shame we can't have a conversation about Titanic being a sequel, but sadly, there we are. But James Cameron is I didn't really know much about him, but when I really kind of got into Titanic, and I watched a lot of documentaries that he'd made about Titanic, and kind of like how obsessed he got about it, and what I really thought, oh, this guy's an absolute genius. I mean, as a personality, I imagine I wouldn't want to be married to him, but no, he is an absolute genius, and I think it makes me a bit sad that he's going to spend the rest of his life making Avatar films. I'm like, do something else, mate.
Yeah, I'd love him to do something else. So what was your dream sequel?
So my dream sequel, I think, I remember hearing Mark Kermode and Simon Mayo discussing once that it's one of the tragedies of kind of cinema that a comedy never wins Best Picture. Like for some reason, we've just decided that it's not a good art form. But actually, my favourite films are comedy films, and almost all my favourite comedy films are written by the Farrelly brothers. So obviously, because that's exactly my humour, just the dumb shit. And everyone talks about like Dumb and Dumber, the obvious one, something about Mary. But then also up there for me, Kingpin and the Heartbreak Kid. And specifically, actually, the Heartbreak Kid. Of all the Farrelly films, I would put that Heartbreak Kid second because it is so... Have you ever seen it? Oh my...
No. Ben Stiller one.
Yeah, Ben Stiller. It is unbelievable. It's so silly and so funny. It's really good. You've got Ben Stiller in it. I'd actually say that is one of the most underrated films in the world, but this would be, I think for me, is the most underrated film ever made, Me, Myself and Irene. I think it's better than Dumb and Dumber. And actually the Farrelly brothers I think they've only done Dumb and Dumber 2. I think it's the only sequel that they've ever done. It might be right.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're right, yeah.
Me, Myself, and Irene is a classic. It has, and actually, like I was reading, it's got poor reviews. But if you speak to people who have seen Me, Myself, and Irene, have you guys watched this?
We watched it just recently.
Is it not packed full of incredibly stupid, hilarious moments? And it's a bit of a road movie, but it's constantly surprising you. Like stupid stuff that's happening, like the character of Whitey, who you think has killed his family, but it's just a backstory because he's quite scared of like Jim Carrey. And this idea that Hank and Charlie, kind of, Jim Carrey obviously plays two characters who are kind of, he's having kind of an internal battle. He's been a nice guy all his life. People have been treating him like shit, and he develops his alter ego called Hank, who actually just is rude, obnoxious. It basically plays like Clint Eastwood style characters. So you've got like Jim Carrey just doing this wonderful performance, and then Renee Zellweger as the kind of love interest, and just hilarious plot devices and a brilliant movie. And one of the things that really makes me laugh about the kind of plot twist you don't expect is like towards the end of the film where Charlie grabs the guy's gun. He's like, no. He puts the thumb over the gun and he just blows his finger off. Which is like, that's a trope you've seen in so many films. There's the genius of value. How many times have you seen the good guy put the hand over the gun and the gun just go away? And the whole movie ends with him just blowing his thumb off. And then you get that scene after post credits where they're all in the lake trying to find his thumb. But it's just, there's so many laugh out loud moments. Another one of those devices is like when Jim Carrey is Charlie and Renee Zellweger's character are traveling across the country, and he comes across a cow in the road that's on the way out, and he's like, oh no, he's still alive. He goes, gonna have to dispatch it. Good night. They start shooting the cow again and again. And runs out of bullets and starts trying to strangle it. Like, let go. That is such a funny scene. But then the callback later on in the film where the police are like, he shot a cow 7 times. Damn thing's lucky to be alive. How they find a trope that is like something you're used to and completely twist it.
Yeah.
Like they do that again and
there's
again.
the cow in the credits, isn't there, with like a neck brace on.
This is like
so
peak
stupid.
Jim Carrey, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's at this point in his career, he's just flying.
Whenever I talk to people like me, myself, and Irene, and how much I love it, the scene that always comes up is the Cottonmouth scene, which is like a 30-second throwaway, a complete bit of nonsense. But it's quite an important scene because it's like you're realizing the cops are corrupt and they're trying to frame. I can't remember Renee Zellweger's character's name.
Irene.
But anyway, Irene, of course, what we're talking about. What an idiot. Just flipping egg. Literally there in the title. But they're trying to frame her and like there's corruption amongst the cops. And he just makes a comment, these pills give me that cotton mouth. And over 30 seconds, you just see his mouth getting drier and drier. And he's just like, that is, I think that's the best Jim Carrey scene of any film he does.
It is very funny.
But Irene, good God.
I hadn't watched it for a long time, and then I watched it kind of in preparation for today, and I was surprised actually about how well it still stands up. I was fully expecting to be like, it doesn't quite work with today's references and stuff. And there are bits of it that are a bit off, a bit awkward, but it's pretty much stands up. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun.
I love Jim Carrey. This point, Jim Carrey is just my favorite.
I think it might be. I think it's kind of overlooked because he broke, the Farrelly brothers and him really broke with Dumb and Dumber, and I think
which I don't like very
film
much.
Sits in its shadow. Yeah, it's not that doesn't really stand up. But when you watch it, I maintain Me, Myself, and Irene is funnier, and I think because this film is in its shadow slightly, it gets overlooked. But I think this is the film. This is the film of all the Farrelly brothers stuff, maybe with the exception of the Heartbreak Kid and Kingpin. This is the one. I want these characters back. I want this exact film again. With all the things I like about it, because I was hoping you wouldn't say to me, "What would the plot be?" And because I have no idea.
Oh, that was the
next question.
You're like, I don't know what the plot would be for this film because I just think that. But in the first film, the plot's not even really that important. It's like a bunch of stuff keeps happening, and it's absolutely bloody hilarious. And it's like the kids that he absolutely adores, but clearly aren't his, like being geniuses like the nonsense of Hank and the love interest. I just want that again. I don't even know how it would work.
You'd have to bring Renee Zellweger back as Irene, wouldn't you? And you'd have to have Jim Carrey.
I don't know how it'd work either. I've been thinking on this for a while, trying to think of like how we could do it, and I can't.
They've got to live a happy life, hopefully.
They've got to have more kids.
And something's going to have to sense them off to bring Hank back.
Yeah.
But I don't think I want that to happen to Charlie. Like, I don't think he got to such a nice place where he wasn't bottling up all his anger anymore. You don't want him to have to get to a point where he's so disturbed he has to bring Hank back.
Maybe it's a different personality. Maybe it's not Hank. Maybe he's refusing to cry or something.
It's been 22 years since the first film, right? So I think, what if Irene's character had died?
So good.
And that actually he's, he's mourning her loss, but he's got grown-up kids now, and actually that her loss has brought back Hank, and that actually,
oh yes,
and maybe Hank did something when he was he's got to go on the run, but then it turns out Hank didn't do anything. What about that?
There could always be a ghost, Irene.
Yeah. But you know, like Jim Carrey and Renee Zellweger started going out after meeting on this film.
Oh, did they?
And I've always thought, they
you
went
could
out
tell because their chemistry. Talking about chemistry in bad
unbelievable.
Films, so
but
good.
also, does that speak to the fact that everyone was having a good time on this film? Because I think that really comes across. Like you can just tell everyone has great chemistry in this film. And what I love about Farrelly Brothers film is that you see it in this. Because they're from Rhode Island, where this film is set. Yeah, and there are some.
I think all their films are set in Rhode Island, pretty much, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, that could be true.
Yeah.
But there's what I love about Farrelly Brothers films, specifically this one, is like you occasionally get people turn up who are so obviously their mates and not actors. Do you know what I mean? Like the performance. And having just slagged off like people who have no right acting in films, I love that about Farrelly Brothers films, where it's really clear someone is not an actor, but actually it's quite nice. Like in the same way that I love that scene in Goodfellas where Martin Scorsese's mum plays the character who, it's a really authentic performance, but you can tell it's not an actress's. You know, this is not. It lends something to the film. It makes the film feel friendlier.
Yeah. Because the end credits, it has all the people that you think, oh, this is just all their mates, isn't it? And it says, oh, these are all the people that were cut out of the movie, basically. And they're not all cut out. They are.
It goes on
for ages. It's all the different names of all the people that are in it. And you're like, they are all your friends. And they're all the people that live around Rhode Island where you filmed this, aren't they?
Yeah. Would you have liked to release your sequel now, like 2022, or would you have put it like 2010, 2012?
That's a good question.
Does Farrelly Brothers humour work now as well as it did back in the...
I think, do you know what? I think Dumb and Dumber 2 is better than Dumb and Dumber 1.
Fuck off.
Really?
Whoa.
No?
Sorry, listeners.
It's kind of more.
Nah.
It's probably more. I kind of enjoyed it more.
Chris Hewitt from Empire had the same argument, and I can't.
Really? Did he?
It.
So, we're in Empire.
You're in good company. He says there's some really good jokes in there, but I would put Dumb and Dumber 2 in my worst sequels ever list. I think Dumb and Dumber is top quality comedy. I think
I'm not a big
there's
fan.
a joke every 37. How are you not? Know. Jeff Daniels and Jim Carrey are so good in that film. I watch it and just laugh.
I don't know. It's just too much, I think.
All the time.
I
don't think in the second one it doesn't work because of the gap and the actors are not really into it. And the way it looks. I have a problem with the way it looks.
The way it looks, because it's a bit too polished, too much of a...
Yes.
No, the first one does have this sheen, like it's been recorded on a VHS. You know, it feels like it's dulled, slightly. Whereas in the second, it is quite like, whoa, it's quite a shiny film. Yeah. I don't know, the first, like, I'm not sure the first one stands up that well. Like, I think it's really good.
I'm going to have to rewatch it.
But when you watch it back, you're like, I don't know, it feels a little bit clunky and it's slow in paces. So I really enjoyed the second one. But to answer your question, I think I'd rather than Me, Myself and Irene sequel now. I just want more Farrelly Brothers. They need to increase their output.
Because they're not working together anymore. It's just...
Are they not?
Bobby. No, it's just Bobby. He's done... Green Book was the one that he won an Oscar for the other...
Oh, yeah.
That
was Peter, not Bobby.
I knew it was one.
Still getting the Farrelly Brothers wrong.
And then he's released a film recently. Is Rich checking?
I'm just looking now. So he's got one coming out in 2023 called Straight Man. Oh, no, it's a TV series. Right. That's not a... I don't think you said...
I'm pretty sure he released the film last year again or this year.
Doesn't look like it.
Oh, so they never worked again after Dumb and Dumber 2?
Yeah,
do you think they fell out on it then?
I don't know. I think working together as brothers, like the Coen brothers now don't work together. They've broken up, which is bizarre.
Wow. I didn't know that either.
They've decided to go away. I don't think they've anything bad. They just have different ideas and different movies. I don't think Peter wants to make these kind of comedy anymore. He's won an Oscar now for Green Book. So
I mean, it's never going to happen, is it? I think isn't it sad that like people still seem to go on these obviously they're talented enough to win a Best Picture. Like they're that good at writing and creating movies that they just happen to have applied all that to comedic films for the first part of their career, and now they've gone on and showed we can make dramatic films. And isn't that the shame of the art form that it's overlooked?
There's a lot of directors that do that, like Adam McKay, who did the Step Brothers, he's now come out and making like Vice and The Big Short and the Netflix film. Jay Roach, who did the Austin Powers for comedy films, he came out and did Bombshell a couple of years ago about the head guy who runs Fox. So I think if you start in comedy, you seem to be going that way.
And that's because I think comedy is harder. I think it's harder to make a really good comedic
absolutely.
film. And then this is why I think it's such a shame it's so overlooked when it comes to award ceremonies and discussions of what the best films are, because comedy films never. I remember Hangover came close, didn't it? Did The Hangover get nominated for like a comedy? I can't remember. Or it was in the picture.
I can't remember.
It was in the discussion about it, but it never. Of course, it never won it. And it's like these people who are making comedy films have the chop to make great films, and you rarely do you see people go the other way. And I think that's the real shame of like comedy films, is like it's seen as a kind of lesser art form, when actually I think it is a higher art form.
It is harder to make a decent comedy sequel.
Definitely,
they are.
Yeah.
Hangover, I like Hangover 2.
Between.
Hangover 2 was good. No,
I haven't watched it recent enough to comment on it, but
Hangover 2 and 3 are both fine. I think are both good. I mean, Hangover is really good, and Hangover 2 and 3 are just as good.
Talking about a director that's gone from one to another, Hangover is the guy who did Hangover did Joker.
Yes. Of course, there you go, mate.
Which is, some people like that film, some people don't.
I don't.
It's okay.
It's not as good as people think it is, Joker, is it?
It's
Phoenix is amazing in it.
Yeah.
But the film itself is not.
The film itself is basically King of Comedy and Taxi Driver just sort of stolen, basically, isn't it?
Slung
Meshed.
together. Yeah. And he says he kind of did it as an art project, that he doesn't want to be in a sequel. But surely he's done it with one eye of being in the universe to be like. Surely you perform the vocal.
The sequel's
yeah,
coming.
They've announced the sequel. Yeah, it's going to be a musical, and Lady Gaga is going to play Harley Quinn.
Are you joking?
Nope.
Are you joking?
We're not.
Fucking hell.
That's been the reaction to everyone we've told.
Fucking hell. That sounds so shit.
It does, doesn't it? Those were Chris Scull's Unequal sequels. Lovely choices, Dave.
RoboCop 2 as best surprised me, Rich. I'm not going to lie to you, because it's not great, is it?
I mean, well, it's not bad.
No, that is very true.
But it's about what it means to you, though, isn't it? Like
that is true.
If it was, it's those memories that it invokes. We always say that about sequels. It's more about what it means to you than anything else. And obviously, RoboCop 2 is important to Chris. So, that's the thing. I mean, I think personally, probably not my favourite sequel, but it's not a bad film. We've certainly seen a lot worse.
Oh yeah. It's proper violent as well. Like, I don't know. RoboCop with me, it's not something I connected to when I was young. I didn't have the toys or anything or anything like that. And I know I mentioned it in the episode. I really get 1 and 2 muddled up a lot. I think they're really similar.
They are very similar.
The bad guys and the plots and stuff. But it is fun, and it is fun watching it now when you live in today's world and think, oh, that's actually happened, and stuff like that. It was good though. Listen to his how he watched it, and his mum buying him the VHSs and stuff, and like Welcome Break and stuff. But his worst, man, he fucking hate Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World.
The Lost World. I don't think it's that bad.
He really
hated it, yeah. And to be fair, good reasons for hating it. I don't think it's that bad.
Well, it's not bad compared to some of the others.
No. I mean, compared to Jurassic Park, then fair enough. It is a step down. But it still has that Spielberginess.
Yes, but when you're like an 11-year-old boy and you're thinking the world's going to be brilliant and it's going to be wonderful, and then you come out of that and it's...
Yeah, I guess.
Honestly, I think it ruined his childhood. The way he went on about it. Counselling, needed to get over it.
Yeah. And talking of counselling, then his dream sequel, Me, Myself and Irene. That's
still funny. Still funny.
Well, yeah. Still, I watched when I rewatched it. I was like, "This is a good movie." I remember there are bits on it that haven't aged well.
Obviously, it's a Farrelly Brother film.
Yeah, of course, there are bits that haven't aged well, but generally, quite good. Good, decent movie.
I love Jim Carrey films of this era as well.
Yeah.
The man's a legend.
I'm not sure where a sequel's going to go though.
Well, we gave it a good attempt. My favourite bit of all that conversation is when he forgot the name of Irene, even after mentioning what's the film, The Woman in Me, Myself and Irene.
That was very funny.
It still makes me laugh. I'm never going to let him forget it either. It's great, man. But yeah, you should go check out Chris's. Well, obviously, check out Chris's podcast, Quickly Kevin.
Oh, we love
with Josh Widdecombe and past guest Michael Marden.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a listener of Quickly Kevin because I'm very much a big fan of 90s football, mainly because it's when Man United won everything, and it's my happy period. 1999 is still the greatest year of football ever. And now, in recent time, Man United have not been where they were in the 90s.
Oh, well, never mind. Oh, dear,
yeah,
what
go
a shame,
listen to
never
that.
mind.
It's a great podcast. Go listen to it. It's really funny. If you like 90s football, 90s stuff, really.
I
Music,
like 90s
film.
football a lot more than I like football today. So,
That's weird because you're a Liverpool supporter and now it's going a lot better than it was in the 90s.
Well, not really. I mean, if I picked a top team, it would be Liverpool, but I'm kind of more of a Cheltenham Town supporter these days.
And you're also a rugby fan as you're sitting there in Gloucester.
I am, sitting there in my Gloucester rugby top because they're playing today. But yeah, no, I'm not really that into football, to be fair. But 90s football, definitely into 90s football. The nostalgia, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And if you're a Quickly Kevin fan and you've tuned in today to hear Chris and you thought, do you know what? This movie sequel podcast is actually pretty good. I might want to listen to more of those. Well, you can. We've got loads more episodes for you to go back to listen to. Hit the little subscribe button, hit the auto download button, and we'll drop into your pod player of choice every single week. We have interview episodes, we have rambly extra episodes where me and Dave just talk about stuff. Movie stuff, obviously, not just general stuff. And yeah, all that stuff. And if you enjoyed it, then give us a little like, give us a heart, give us a 5 stars. It really helps us to promote the podcast. If you really like it and you want to hear a bit more from Chris, then you can join us on Another Slice. It's anotherslice.com/unequal sequel. It's an extra subscription service. Pay $2.99 a month, and we will drop a sequel to every single one of our interview episodes. Plus, we've got some bonus trailer breakdowns. We've got some other bonus content coming on there too. There's going to be loads of extra stuff in the extra slice. You're going to get so much for your $2.99. It's crazy. So yeah, go ahead and do that. We understand times are tough. Not everyone can do that right now. So if instead you just want to check us out on social media, we're on Twitter @unequalsequel and Instagram also @unequalsequel. Or you can send us an email, unequalsequel@hotmail.com. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. Let us know what you thought about Chris's choices. I'm sure there are people out there who are going to have strong opinions about these choices. So let us know, and we'll read out everything that you tell us on our monthly roundup episode.
Perfect. I dozed off for a minute. I'm not going to lie to you there.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
No, because I trust you so much.
You're
much
so
trust.
dull, I fell asleep.
No, trust. Definitely trust. I was thinking about the next step. Anyway, thank you for listening, everyone. We really appreciate it. Go do everything that Rich said. Go look at Another Slice. We've got lots of stuff coming. I've got nothing else to say. You got anything else to say, Rich?
No.
Okay, it is a you from me, which is goodbye in Swedish. Apparently.
I thought you said "Hey you" from me.
No,
like,
you.
Oh, okay.
You in Swedish, and goodbye. And it is a goodbye from him.
Bye.
Go do some stargazing. It's beautiful at night.
Bit foggy though today.
No, it is very foggy, especially where we live, Rich. I think it's the most foggiest part of the world.
Do you reckon?
It is always foggy here. When I moved here, I hadn't seen anything like it. It was
It's
crazy.
like Silent Hill.